Okay, I'm going to ask this child, what is absolute zero? Cryogenics? Cold as ice. Have you ever heard of the veins, a cold heart, a black heart? Cold as ice. Cold as ice. Absolute zero. The coldest ice. Cold fusion. Breathing fire. The mother god of dragons. Birthing, breathing, fire, dragons. The mother god birthing stars. The seeds of stars. The mother god as the first seed, the first atom cell, the first cosmina, the first cell, the first living cell, the first living biosphere cell, the first biotech operating system. Breathing dragons, breathing fire, living stars that are breathing eternal fire. The first spark that ignited the first coil, the first snake, spinning a spiral, going up as an ascending spiral, an ascending star, an ascending seed, God's seed, the seed of a mother god joined as one to experience being one with all creation, gifting electrons at the highest harmonic ratio of accelerating the speed of our magnet as an accelerator, as a router, as a hub server, as a multiversal hub server. Service forever. The 4-square crystal cathode ray tube cathedral of the most sacred temples of Gaia Sophia Ascending. That is the Crystal Mother Host mission. Our missions. That's right. Those are our missions. We came back in time. That's right. To make sure that we had a future, which means that our children would have a future. Sergeant Dan Boland got that right. That means he was in the loop, but not in a time loop. He knew that the open system would be the open gates, which would be the arcing of breathing dragons, and why we're here, experiencing the work that's been done. And if you see, what's his name, Christopher Comstock gave what's called a KDDL update, and gave some reference to a lot of the stuff that Una Flash references, right? Of the work that Lemurian Light has been doing, right? And why we're all here as guardians, having completed most of the work, but we're always on the job. My oversoul is always on the job, because when I lit myself on fire, That is a choice. That's called a free will spiritual choice that a soul chooses to make. The spiral, which is the one you're with, the spiral that you're with. And when you light yourself on fire to serve forever, you cannot fool the one that you want to serve forever. That is a free will choice to do that. Now you are a forever one, which means you are a beloved because you're always experiencing being loved by the one to experience being one. That means that you're no longer binary. You're trinary because 1 and 3 have a relationship. But when you experience being one, that means that there is only one pathway to experience 0. Which is no memory and no batteries required because you're running on the eternal spirit of fire because that's what you are. You're experiencing being one with the eternal spirit of fire, the first spark that ignited the first coil, the first rotation. Expand that fire. So, if you've been listening to my videos, I love to be around a lot of fire. Jumping into the routers of volcanoes, the servers, right? Traffic cops standing at the intersection of a perfect 4-way, the 4 square crystal spiral, right? Just like a traffic cop when you have a 4-way intersection, right? Between north and south and east and west. So when you're at the center point of that sphere, breathing fire, you're in perfect balance with the one. The first point of it all, the first purpose, repurposing energy. What is the purpose of our energy? Breathing fire, breathing with the sun, being a breatharian. We're running on the energy of the cosmos, which is the consciousness of the cosmos, which is the eternal consciousness of the cosmos, which is gifting itself because it's experiencing gifting electrons at the highest accelerated rate of speed. And that is hyperspeed. How fast you want to go in vibration, right? The first vibration, a love vibration, playing music that is in love with itself because you love the energy that you are. That's called self-love, and that's called being what love is. Now that you are what love is, that's called a beloved. Be what love is. I know. And it's as simple as simply surrendering to the one to experience being one. Okay? It's just too simple when you're a little kid. That's why it's not that it's difficult, but I would prefer that you see me when I was 4 years of age talking to everyone in this phone than you would when you see what looks like an older male, right? Sometimes I try to tell Nathan, try and think of me as a female. Can you see a female in me? In other words, now I just changed what I look like. Now I look like a girl because you would speak to me in a different way, wouldn't you? Right? So I realized ever since I was a little kid, how this works between 2 poles when you're in a male avatar versus a female one, right? But I grabbed this one for reasons in which I did. For the work that we do, because it would have made less obstacles. I could have got more done by virtue of the places that we go to get it done, right? Because it's all about density, right? Cutting through all the density so that you're experiencing less mass and more light to do more work at a higher rate of speed, right? So you realize when you get into the full spectrum military dominance by use of the QI and the AI, right, that is integrated with that energy. Now we're into dead cells and living cells. And knowing the difference between the pH of a living cell, the first biosphere, right, the first biological operating system, to operate in a matter system. So now you're into non-matter and matter. Now you're into pre-phase and phase. Now you're in, now you're out. Logging in, logging out. Logging in, logging out. Logos. Logos. Guys, 3 spheres. Logos. Log-O-S. Log the operating system. Now we're into log scales. Now we're into scalar log scales. So we know what a water column is. We know what a water distribution table is. So we know what the displacement of water is. So now we know what the differential is, which is a torque speed differential in water worlds. The torque speed differential of displacement, replacing the space with something else. Now what was there that you were seeing on the visible light spectrum is not the same because you threw a big 10-pound ice cube into that bathtub. It's got to fit, right, in the space. So the light, which is the purest light there is, right, when you're on fire, you're experiencing the eternal spirit of fire. You don't want to hold on to any energy. Otherwise, you're not going as fast. If you want to be the fastest star, right, the first star, a cosmic level star that is an eternal star, then you do not want to hold on to one electron or you're slowing yourself down. Now, I know that because I experienced that. So I know the truth. So I know the absolute truth because I want to experience absolute zero. Right? Yeah. So when you experience how that works, then you're being informed of what you are by the way that it works. So that's why when I went into the school, you can go look at chapter 5, right? In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, when I was in their schools, right? And they would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm already grown up. No, you're not. You're just a little kid. So what does it mean to be a grown-up? Well, that's a learning pathway, right? Who are the teachers? Who are we learning through, right? Okay, so you have arrived. That's called contact, right? Contact. Making contact with the universe, right? The universe of all creation. So I made contact with the one. Now I'm a one because I'm experiencing the one. Now I'm experiencing what love is. Now I'm experiencing being one with all creation. I'm gifting love to at the highest accelerated rate of speed. Why? Because I don't want to experience anybody losing any electrons. Because then I'm experiencing me losing electrons. Right? So the eternal spirit of fire isn't losing any electrons. The eternal spirit of fire is gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. Right? So you can imagine somebody working in a library and pulling all the books off the shelf and putting them into a dumpster and burning them all. You see how that gets inverted? Because what it means is when you walk into that library and you spend time to sit down in that library and read all those books, all that stuff happened in the past. Okay? That means we're not learning anything new. What it means is, oh, I read this story. Is this story true or not true? Well, you're using your energy to make it true for you, right? Well, did this really happen? Well, did you experience it? Yeah, I experienced a story in that book. This is when they get into myth. Oh, it's a myth. It didn't happen. Well, I just experienced it happening because I experienced what it was explaining to me. In other words, I'm reading the text. Now I'm experiencing what the text is communicating to me. I wouldn't be able to experience that if that wasn't true for me to experience that. So I'm using real, living, eternal light in order to experience something that already happened, but it's happening at the time that I'm experiencing it. So now you get into the difference between something you may have experienced before that you forgot, and you're experiencing something now that you didn't realize you forgot because you're experiencing it right now. So now you're getting into now time, past, and the future, right? And so you begin to realize how this works. When you're experiencing the one at absolute zero, nothing's happened yet. Now it happened. So the speed at which you're happening zero, now you're experiencing the next thing that happened at the same rate of speed. Because the flashing of the sequences is so fast, you don't notice the differential, which is the time delay. Wow, that's right. That's because you're plugged into the one. You're experiencing eternity. So what you're experiencing, what you create and generate out of that energy, which is the eternal spirit of fire, are eternal energy creation spheres. So you are the generator of energy that is experiencing eternal creation spheres. Those are worlds born out of what love is. That means the world that you live in is what love is. Therefore, wherever you go, whatever world you're in, you're experiencing what love is. Because love is the energy that you're generating, because that's what you are, having a one connection. So you're experiencing the eternal spirit of fire, and that spirit of fire is the highest rate of accelerating electrons. So now you're using light and sound, right, to generate music. So now you're a musician. So the musician, which is the spirit that is in that biosphere, is experiencing itself playing music. So we play music. So we play music connected to the first musician. Now we're tuned into the first musician. That means that we know how to tune all the stars, which means we know how to tune all the waves, which means we know how to tune all the frequencies. So they're in a state of balance, which is a state of equilibrium, which is back to equal distribution. So that everybody's experiencing voltage. And they're not losing any, which is called what? Decay. Just like the way that teeth rot and decay. Right? And what color do you see when that happens? Right? So I was very, there was a guy named Dr. Livinggood, and I'm glad that he sort of brought this out when he talked about being outside, and you can sort of translate this and navigating how, in a consciousness field, how this sort of works, what we're held captive to, what we're not held captive to, and the environments that we choose to experience by virtue of our own free will in which to do that. So he talked about being outside versus being in a house. Okay, and so I go, yeah, that's right. When I was a little kid growing up, I never wanted to be in the house. I couldn't stand to be in the house, as a matter of fact. Right? So I was always outside running around on the bare earth with my bare feet. And from that, you get to build up some real tread, callus on the bottom of your feet. So, in other words, so there's a reason why that happens, right? So that you can walk over anything, right, without harming yourself. Because you're always picking up free electrons, right, to keep yourself charged with mother's battery, right? So when you're always wanting to be in nature, you can see why you always want to be in nature, because they're playing music out there. And those are called filters. That's called filtering content. So you're getting rid of all the dirty electricity. Or, if you will, the goo. inA, who's a ka-na-ka-ma-ole, Lemurin, we used to joke around about this. We used to call it getting sticky, getting goo on you. So you got to burn the goo off. So you know what kind of goo that is, right? Slowing you down. The binary stuff. Slowing your speed down. Right? So now we're back into black goo and Harold Kotzvela. Right? About binary war games, video war games, playing ping pong between two magnets instead of being one magnet. Most powerful magnet there is. That's an eternal magnet. That's the highest accelerator of electrons, being one with one. The first atom cell, the first cells, right? The first sun, the first spark, the first fire. Now you're experiencing the eternal spirit of fire. Wow, you're on fire. Yeah, and now you begin to realize your intensity goes up because your volume goes up. Because the volume of energy that you're now experiencing, that you're giving away at the highest accelerator of electrons, means your consciousness is expanding at the highest rate of speed, which means now you're learning at the highest rate of speed. And that's called a gifted student or a gifted learner, right? And so the way that works is real simple. You're gifting electrons. A gifted student has learned how to gift electrons. Instead of becoming an inverter, it is now what? An accelerator. So who would you rather learn from? An inverter or an accelerator? I know. So I know this is going to sound crazy to some folks, but when you're using the phone, which is deadlight cell energy, it's slowing you down. That's why after I get done using the phone, I got to go out there and put my feet on that ground and start breathing fire with that sun. But remember, it's a two-edged sword, because it's a way in which we can communicate with all of you who it is that we are, that you learn through us who we are. So we're all learning together who we all are, and the direction that we're all choosing to go in of our own free will and free spirit in which to do that, right? So I try and keep it simple the same way I did when I was a little kid, because I've never lost that single point. Absolute zero, which is absolute love. That is eternal love that is on fire to love you. And that way, my mirror is running hot, which means everything that is in my mirror is what love is, because that's what we are. Okay, so you know that the eternal accelerator of electrified sound and light is the source from which it all began. And so we have a connection to the source from which it all began. Now your spirit is on fire. Now you can go wherever you want to go because you're cleaning. It's like you're a house cleaner, right? That fire is purifying everything as it goes. That's right. So that everywhere that we go is experiencing what we are, which is eternal unconditional love. So when everyone else is experiencing unconditional love through us, they're healing. Now they remember the point from which it all began, with the eternal spirit of fire, breathing fire. That's the purifier. That's what purifies our energy. That's what purifies our consciousness, right? Now you're not an inverter. Now you're a purifier. You're purifying yourself. So your energy, which is your consciousness, which is your soul and your spirit, is experiencing being purified. And that is a firewall, which means the code transfers do not get through that are trying to harm us so that we experience who they are rather than who we are. So it's a matter of knowing one from the other, the one that loves you forever. That's who we are. Forever. The four-way intersection. The cross, the vertical and the horizontal stabilizer inside of a gyrodome, which is the actual spin rotation of all those atoms that are cycling energy. Yeah, we're cycling energy, right? That's a wastewater treatment recycling plant, right? To maintain the balance of the pose. So we don't fall down. Maintaining our balance on the vertical and the horizontal. I know. So you can see how this is when you're outside, getting plenty of sunshine, getting plenty of the spirit of the wind, the spirit in the water, Mama spirit in the earth, right? All the elementals, the elemental command. Yeah. That's 3. Yeah. That's 1. I know. Have a beautiful day. I guess I should go out to the sun. I do need to get down to La Poya and start spending the day at the beach instead of spending time in this house. Have a beautiful day. Thanks, Dr. Living Good. That is absolutely right. I remember that as a little 4-year-old kid, remembering, I always want to be outside, man. That's where all the energy is, right? That's where all the music is being played in nature, right? Go jump in the ocean for a day. Go swim with mama's waves. Go climb through a forest. Have fun with everything that's out there. Go ride a giraffe. Make friends with a bear, right? Swim with the dolphins. They'd be happy to see you, right? That's what was so beautiful over here around the corner on what is it? Kehaha Beach, not Kekaha, which is the island of Ka-U-I on. The light is always on. It's Kahana Beach. And on Sundays, I don't know if I haven't been over there for a while, but we used to have what's called a circle of fire, a drum circle. And the dolphins would come out because it's like a little tiny bay, real small, where you can go out in the water there and body surf, right? It's not really suitable for surfing because the ride is too short. Not that you can't do that, but I'm a body surfer. Even though I've surfed on a board before, I used to surf on a boogie board. Body surf on a board, which is really a boogie board, right? But I prefer to use underwater demolition fins that are made by Voigt, and they're called UDTs. They're black, they're big, they're stiff. But if you want to work your entire body being out in the ocean, which is known as what? Isometrics. ISO is a frame rate speed of what we experience holographically at the rate of speed that is represented by who we are as accelerators. But if you get yourself a pair of Voigt fins, which are known as the UDT fins, and if you want to get yourself in shape really fast, that's the fastest way that I know how to get myself in shape, because I did it at Newport Beach when I've always had a pair of those fins since I was a little kid. When I saw a man who was about 56 years of age, he was 63. And he was actually there in Newport Beach there by the pier. We used to hang out at 17th Street, where 15th Street was a bigger wave, which was a bowl. You know what a bowl is, like a cup that would break and crash, but it was a shorter wave. So if you wanted to flip up and then go on an angle down to the right and then kick out back through the wave, right, which means you're immersed in the water with your full body. So you're getting the full effect of all the salt water and the wave and the energy that is moving that wave. That's why I love body surfing better than board surfing, because when you're standing on the board, you're not experiencing being in the water with living energy, right? So every cell in your physical body is experiencing the waves, that you're moving through the waves, much like moving through a wall of the waves of energy that are represented by the phasing that is phasing in and out. And so that's why I happen to love body surfing. But those particular fins, if you want to get in shape, and if you're anywhere near a beach and you want to go out to a body surfing beach or go out on the water, if you have a pair of fins like that, you won't get sucked out, particularly down at Newport Beach where they used to have what's called red tide. You get yourself a pair of Voigt UDT Navy Frogmen fins, you can power through the water and get yourself back in shore. But it's also one of the quickest ways to get all your muscles and generate a gazillion neurons, right? And really get everything into balance, which means that the ocean will balance your energy out and charge you up. It's actually the most biggest way to charge. If I want to charge myself up and clean myself up, I go down in the water down there and go jump into the bay there. That's where I go to get cleaned up. Go jump in the ocean. But, you know, a lot of that means you've got to map read the frequencies of the water. So the water down here at Lapa Hoi Hoi is unbelievable. That's why the humpback whales birth their calves there. Humpback whales are smart enough. They have a high enough level of intelligence where not to birth their calves and where to birth their calves. So you know that mother knows where to birth her calves and why she births them there. Because of the frequencies that are there. So that means that when you jump off the boat dock down at Lapa Hoi Hoi, man, you're jumping into some powerful water. Because all you got to do is go down there and watch some of the older folks, the way that they define the calendar that way, right? You'll see some older folks go jumping and swimming, and I would say to these guys that were close to my age and say, that's a badass charge you're getting in there. And you go, yeah, and you can see the glow, you know, the glow of having just come out of that water, jumping off that boat dock to go spend some time in that water. But you don't want to go jumping in that water if you're not in at least some physical shape to be able to maintain buoyancy in the direction that you're going in, or you could end up, oh, there you go, and you don't want to have that to happen on the Big Island. Okay, and you'll run out of energy trying to fight if you struggle with it, because it's very powerful. And that's very true about the islands, right? So if you get yourself a pair of UDT fins, you can pretty much go wherever you want to go, and you can power and maintain your direction and speed to get back to shore. That's the point, okay? But it's also the fastest way that I know to get all your muscles in tone, because you're working all your muscles when you're in the water with zero gravity, right? So if you want to loosen yourself up, clear all your circuits, experience a badass electrical magnetic charge, then jumping in the ocean, you get yourself a pair of fins, then you can begin to work them, and you can work your calf muscles, all the muscles in your femur, you know, up in your upper leg, and of course your waist, and then of course your chest. Because I used to swim, I was trained to swim competitively with an Olympic swimmer, so this is where you get into their breath work. So I know a lot about all the strokes, right? I was a lifeguard when I was 11 years of age. So I know it's you learn how to become an expert swimmer in any kind of water worlds, right? So when you've learned how to navigate your consciousness in a physical way in a body of water, particularly the Pacific Ocean, or any ocean for that matter, any body of water, because that's what we are, right? Water worlds, mostly water, wetware as they say. The Pacific Ocean, particularly here, is one of the fastest ways to get yourself back in a really good physical shape, get yourself back into homeostasis. Your state of mind is experiencing higher voltage. You're cleaned up. You're getting rid of all the dirty electricity and burning off all the glucose, black glucose. Now you're experiencing an emotional state of mind. Yeah. Your heart and soul's working again. Man, am I charged up. Yeah. Go jump at a volcano. You'd be surprised what that. No, that's not a recommendation. I do that. Okay. Breathing fire. Eternal spirit of fire. But yes, I've always recommended that because of what I've experienced. I've burned off a lot of mass. You know what mass is when you get into the basal metabolic rate. I know because because I'm measuring myself of where I'm at in mass and density and the speed at which I'm accelerating electrons. So I know that if I want to be able to lose mass and gain speed, having a relationship with the ocean is one of the quickest ways to do that. So I know where to go on how to do that. It's just like, man, if I need to get myself back in shape and burn off any mass, I'll just go find an ocean to have a relationship with and start swimming in the ocean every day. And you'd be surprised how fast that happens. Right? Because we're mostly salt water. So when you got a relationship with salt water, things improve. Right? But you got to know the water that you're jumping in by mapping the frequencies that are there that you're jumping into with your waves, your radio waves, with your radio set, right? With your template. Right, the software that you're running, right? And so it's a matter of mapping temples, knowing the templates that people are running, which is mapping the software, which is mapping the waves of the consciousness that are generating the plasma, right? So part of what they wanted to do was dumb everyone down, which means to generate lower electrons or losing electrons. They're not gaining electrons, right? So they're gaining mass, not losing mass. So they're going back in time instead of going forward in speed. Be able to experience something new they haven't experienced before because it's so beautiful to do that, because that's a creative mind that's on fire in which it's happening. That's the hottest fire engine of creation there is. That's the first one. That's the first engine. That means there isn't any cabooses. There isn't any freight being hauled by that. That's zero mass. That's absolute love. That's the ring of fire. That ring of fire is circulating so fast and expanding so fast with a spiral. What do you want to experience next? The whole universe. Come on, let's go. When you experience that at 4 years of age, being with another 4-year-old little girl, you realize where you're at already with another girl who's got a spirit who wants to go do that. Soul to soul, eyes to eyes, spirit to spirit. Spirit of fire. Fire-breathing dragons. Absolutely.